All right, so I have my assets file. It's one of two Photoshop files we need. I have my storyboard sketch, which tells me the frames I want to build. These are called the keyframes. So these are the minimum I need, but there's going to be lots of in-betweens that kind of smooth it out. My first frame looks like this, but my assets, you have all the components. So this asset is like these sets that are built. And it's made up of lots of different parts. Like it has a background, like they're building here. And then it has a foreground. And I want to keep all of that in assets. I have atmosphere, right? Which can be turned on and off, or it can be played with in terms of opacity. That's my sky. So I'm going to play with all those things a little bit. But I have to, I got to get to the right layer. Or the right, here we go. But to do that, there we go. Once I've created a frame I think is good for my animation, I need to be able to keep it somewhere. Just like you take a photo for stop motion. So that is this workflow. To move my finished frames from assets to the stage. So I've got my first finished frame, even though it's made of multiple layers. So what is step one? I set up my desired frame. That's step 0. That is done. So step 1 is to click the topmost visible layer. Step 2 is to hold down Option, the Option key, while I go to Layer in Photoshop and click on Merge Visible. What that does is it makes a combined layer all in one place without losing any of the data from the layers behind. Next, I hit Command A to select it all, which you can see right here under Select. Command A. Then I hit Command C to copy it all. Then I move to my stage file. I have to click on the stage file. I don't have a stage file yet. This is how you create it. Once you've made one frame, you're going to say, once you've copied it, like I just did, so step C or 4 on this list, then I'm going to say File New in Photoshop, and I'm going to name it my name, assignment number 3, stage, all in capitals, Popeye. And it should be, because you copied it and you already set your image size, it should already be 800 pixels by 800 pixels. And that's the same as 8 inches by 8 inches at 100 pixels per inch. And then I go to the next step, which is I'm on my stage file, Command V to paste, which you could also find under Edit. So now I have put the photo of my set onto my scrapbook, which will become my film strip. Okay. Now I click back on my assets, step 7, and I hit Command D to deselect. And then I hit Delete to clear that merged frame. Why do I have to hit Command D first? Well, let me show you what happens when I hit Delete and I don't hit Command D. Watch the combined layer here. Because it's all selected, it will just clear it, but it won't delete the layer. And then I'll have a lot of empty layers that are really confusing. So you want to hit Command D and then Delete. Now I set up my next frame. What's my next frame? I need to introduce my egg. So I go to my assets, which are here, right? And I want an egg. So I can look at references. I can pull them from Pixabay. I've got some here. And I can create them. I can even just draw my own egg. So this is using everything you've done in compositing, right? So I've got an egg here I might modify. I've got an egg here that's both intact and cracked. I've got a colorful egg here. And I've got an animation test here. So lots of things. So what egg do I want to bring in? I like the look of this one. So I'm going to drag and drop that into my assets file. You can see I do it in all caps so I can really see clearly. I have the assets here. I have the stage here. Okay, this egg, I don't need to make it match the setting exactly, but I need to make it a size that works for the story I want to tell. And it comes in as a smart object, so I can transform it just like we have in lots of ways. Let me see. Now this is bringing in just a PNG as a smart object. So to alter it, what would I do? I would duplicate it and rasterize it and keep that smart object handy. That's what's called a hero asset, if I ever need to go back to it. But now I've got to make this egg work, so I'm just going to trim it out. Get rid of these feet. These are not what I want. And then let's see, I'll select around it, then I'll select the inverse so I get all the shapes inside. And now I'm going to use my clone stamp on a new layer just to paint out those parts I don't need. So I'm going to do this at 100% opacity, soft brush, but pretty small because I'm only at screen resolution. I'm going to hold down Option from Sample from All Layers to sample from here, and then paint it here. Same thing with this. This is a little bit brighter, a little bit trickier. And because it's just a GIF animation at screen resolution, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Yeah, so that's going to work. Okay, so that's my egg. What if I want the egg to be a little bit more interesting than that? I can now merge these two. What if I want some texture on that egg? We can play with compositing, right? So let's see. Also got this one. Wish there was more texture there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in Pixabay for an ostrich egg. And I could get it from Google too, but Pixabay is always going to give me Creative Commons open images. And I'm just going to use the texture of that. Oh, if only they just had a clean one, that'd be so easy. Because I need it to feel like a big, like prehistoric kind of egg. All right, since I'm just using it as a texture overlay, I'm going to rely on Google. So I go to Images. I don't need it to even be large. I just need it to be clear because I'm just using it as a texture overlay on my egg. So here's an ostrich egg. Open that up. Drag and drop it in. Right? You see how, because I'm working at screen resolution instead of print resolution, it's still nice to have something that's 1,000 pixels or more. But it's a lot easier to find references for screen resolution. Right now, I am going to change this from normal mode to pin light and make it 100% opacity. This is like a texture overlay for the egg. And then I'm going to scale it down stretch it so it covers my egg, and then hit return. Then I simply lasso the empty space around my egg, say select inverse. This is how we colored our very first exercise. Move to this layer and then duplicate. Command J and then delete what it comes from. And now I've got a nice texture on that egg. Right. Now if I want more of that, I'm going to duplicate that texture again and just change it to normal mode and then just take the opacity down. And maybe even play with the direct adjustments. So all the things we've learned in compositing come into play here. You can deepen the shadows, bring that texture out, because I like that kind of orange color. And now I've made my own egg component, which is different than what I started with. Okay, now this egg, I'm going to merge all these into one. And this is now my hero asset of my egg. So I mark it green. And when I want to move the egg, I'm not going to just move that same layer. I'm going to make a duplicate and move it and get what's called a movement cycle. All right. Now here's the real problem with an egg rolling. You have a shadow underneath. And I have to ask myself, do I want a shadow underneath or not? And I'm going to be masochistic and say, yes, I want a shadow underneath. So, what can help me do all of this? Sometimes you can look up animation tests within Google. So if I look for an egg rolling, and we're going to go to the tools for images. So tools, I want to look at only GIFs of eggs rolling, not of ostrich eggs, egg rolling. So only GIFs. And you can see that's where I got this one from. And it has the shadow underneath. How nice. But the problem is that's rolling in place. So if I try to match that, I'd also have to move it across my setting. So the one I found that I really like, see if I can find it again. I hadn't seen this one. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, that works pretty well. Looks pretty simple. But it was just a simple black silhouette egg. And I saved it already. And I put it in my folder. It is this one. But you see, it doesn't have a shadow. So, what I do like about it is that it shows me kind of a frame rate and it shows me the bouncing off. So I'm going to show you how you can composite animations. All right, so what you do is you open up the GIF that you want to learn from, because these are multiple frames in order, and you open that GIF with Photoshop. GIF is what we're going to be making. Then you take that whole stack of layers. This is 67 layers. You select them all. You put them in a group together. I'm going to call this the egg roll. Then, this is the new skill. I want to copy that folder into my assets. So I unnest it from the top, so it's floating in Photoshop, which means I can see its layer. And I click on my assets layer. Click back on this, and I drag and drop that folder right into my project, like it's a smart object.